Well, hello again. Welcome to our reading of the Greek New Testament, and I'm reading through Hebrews chapter 4. And it's probably worthwhile again mentioning that you need to have a commentary if you're going to study this work. It's a very complicated work, and I'm just going to translate from the Greek, main emphasis being on language, and you'll need to look up commentaries to get some of the deeper meanings and explanations here. So, chapter 4, phobethomen me poti katalepomenes ep angelias es elthen es ten katapausin autu doke tissex humon hustere kenai. So, we have this is from phobeamai. Now it goes into the into the perfect, I should say. It's a deponent passive, it's often described as, but it goes into the passive voice in past tense and various tenses. This is a aorist subjunctive here. So therefore, let us be afraid. And that's going with the me poti, lest ever. Now, we have a genitive absolute here, the katalepomenes ep angelias. So often with genitive absolutes you've got to put them into a separate clause in English, so something like although the ep angelia, the promise, remains, is remaining. So although the promise still remains to enter into the katapausis autu, into his rest, let us beware lest ever, and then the tis here I think we take next, lest any from among you, doke, it's subjunctive here, might think, it's from docio, might think, understand himself, hustere kenai, to have fallen short. This is from hustereo. This is the perfect infinitive. This is the kenai ending, so it's a perfect infinitive. So just to put that together, so although the promise remains, therefore let us beware, let us be frightened, lest ever, the promise remains to enter into his rest. Let us beware therefore, lest ever someone from among you might think he has fallen short, or might think themselves to have fallen short. Kaiga esmen eu angelismenoi kathape kakanoi. Al uk o phelesen hologos tes akoes sekanus me sung kerasmenus te piste tois akusasin. Now, in all of this, the metaphor, the overriding storyline here is all connected back with the children of Israel in the desert with Moses and being led out by Joshua, and God saying that he would not let certain ones enter into his rest. So you've got to keep all that in mind. Now we get here this is esmen, that's first person plural from the verb to be, and we get a perfect passive part. This is it's from euangelisdomai, which is middle, probably in a passive sense here, to be evangelized. So for we have been evangelized, that is, we have heard the good news. Kath harper, this is kata plus harper, so in just as Kanoi is kai ekanoi, just as also they were, that is, the children of Israel. Al uk, but the hologos tes akoes. Akoes has a range of meanings. It can mean hearing, hence that which is heard, perhaps the message here. But the word of the message, this is from ophalo, to be of use to, was of no use to them, ekanus, did not advantage them. is the more literal translation. So the word of the message was of no use to them. And then in agreement with the ekenus, we get this perfect passive participle here, and there are variant readings as well. And we get a negative in front of, because you negate participles in Koine Greek with may. The verb here is sun keranumi. Keranumi is to mix with, to blend, and then we get a sun with it as well, and the nu, of course, nasalizes to a gamma before the guttural kappa, so it takes a guttural nasal. So it's sun kekeras menus. They who did not mix in or blend with, and it's taking a dative, which is what we're getting here, and this is a dative participle from a kuo here, aorist dative participle, dative plural. So with those who heard, so they did not mingle by means of faith, probably here, with those who heard. So just put that together a little bit, but the word of the message was of no use to them, something like because they did not mix in with those who heard by faith, by means of faith. So you could translate it slightly differently as, so they were not united by faith with those who heard. The key word here is this pistos, because in the earlier chapter he talks about those who heard the message, but they weren't able to enter into the rest because of the apastian, their lack of faith. Eis komethega eis tein katapaus in hoi pistusantes kathos hereken. For we are entering into, again there's variant readings, for we are entering into the rest, we the ones having believed. Again it's the emphasis on belief here. Just as he said, this is Areka, perfect from Lego. Just as he said, and again he re-quotes again this verse that he's quoted several times. Hos omasa ente orge mu es elusontai esten katapausin mu kaitoi ton ergon apokataboles cosmu genethenton. Just as he said that, I swore in my anger that they will never enter into my rest. Now again, if you haven't looked at the earlier chapter, this is this Hebraic construction here. There's no negative, but it's a little bit like, I'll be damned if they enter into my rest, and so you just get in the Greek, I swore that they will not. You've got to put a not in here, even though it's not in the Greek. It's a Semitic idiom. Kaitoi, and yet, although. Now we get a genitive absolute. Tone ergon goes with the gene tone, and we have to supply an autu, I think, here. So it's although his works had been done apokataboles from the foundation of the world, of the cosmos. You can see the roots here, the bowl from bellow, the things which you initially cast down at the foundations, and this becomes katabole as an abstract noun for foundation. So although his works had been done from the foundations of the world, Heriken ga pu perites hebdomes hutos kai katapaus en hotheos en te hemerate hebdome apopanton tonergon autu kai en tuto palin a elusontai esten katapaus in mu. For he has said, perfect again. Now the pu is that indefinite pu, it's enclitic. You see it's put its accent back here. It doesn't mean where, it means somewhere. So pu with the circumflex means where, without the when it's enclitic like this, it just means somewhere. So for he says somewhere, regarding the hebdomes, you've got to supply hemeras here. Regarding the seventh day, he speaks hutos thus. And God ceased on the seventh day from all his works. And it's this quotation here, obviously, from Genesis. And in tuto, and in that place, that is in the scriptures, palin again, and again he requotes this, they will never enter into my rest. Epe un apolepetai tinas es elthan es autan, kai hoi proteron euangelistentes uk es elthon di apethean, palin tina horisde hemeran, semeran, en David legon metatosuton chronon, kathos pro eretai, semeron eontes vernes auto, ake useti me scleruneti tas cardias humon. So again, more the same quotation again. So that's quite a long section. So epe, when therefore, or perhaps sorry, since therefore, apolepetai. Now apolepetai probably being used here impersonally. There remains, or it remains, for. So for since therefore it remains for tinas, certain ones, as elthane, as autain, to enter into it, the it's feminine referring back to the catapausin, and those previously having been evangelized, that is, having the good news, did not enter in di apethean on account of disobedience. The alpha privative plus the paith from patho, and it's turned into an abstract first declension feminine noun, apethean, disobedience. Palintina horisde hemeron. Again, very odd expressions here. Commentaries will flesh it out a bit more. Again, horisde, I think the subject is God. He appoints or fixes. It's present from horisdo. A horos is a boundary stone, and hence something that marks something out or fixes it, and horisdos comes to mean to appoint or to fix. And again, he has appointed tina hemeran, a certain day, as understood semeron, today. And he's picking up this from the verse that he's quoted before, the semeron. So he has appointed a certain day, semeron, today, speaking in David, or possibly by David, metatosuton chronon, after such a period of time, kathos pro eretai, just as he has said beforehand, or possibly it has been said just as it has been said beforehand. I think it's probably passive here. It has been said beforehand. Semeron, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your heart. Do not harden your hearts. We've had that in an earlier chapter. Ega autus Jesus katepausen uk an peri ales elele metatata hemeras. Now, Jesus here, surprisingly, of course, is not Jesus. The name Jesus is a Greek attempt to put the Hebrew name Jeshua or Joshua into Greek, and Jesus has that same name. This refers here, in fact, not to Jesus but to Joshua, because it's in the context of Joshua leading the children of Israel into the promised land. So for if Joshua caused them to rest, or if Joshua caused them to rest, uk an, this goes with the an, so uk an elale, he would not have been speaking after these things, peri ales hemeras. Bit of funny word order here, regarding another day. So if Joshua had led them into this place of peace, he would not have been speaking after these things of another day. Ara, now ara is a lovely particle here. We get quite a few particles in this work. Ara means accordingly or fittingly. Often can't be translated, but I think one should try. So accordingly, apoleipetai, it's that word we had before which was impersonal. Possibly it is personal here because we've got sabbatismos, which is nominative. Sabbatismos means the Sabbath day's rest, the rest you take on the Sabbath day. It's only here in the New Testament. I think it's probably first here in the first here in Greek. Could be wrong there, but it does occur in later religious writers. But you won't find it in the Septuagint or earlier that I could see. So accordingly, the Sabbath day's rest, apoleipetai, remains for the people of God. Hoga es elthon es ten katapausin autu kai autos katapausin apaton ergon autu hospe apatonidion hotheos. For he, having entered into his rest, also he himself rested from his works. Now presumably this is either referring to Jesus or possibly to Joshua. Again, you have to look at the commentaries here, I'm not sure. So for he having entered into his rest, and he himself ceased from his works, just as Hotheos, God, understand, did, apoton idion, from his own works. Spudasomen gar eselthen esakanen ten katapausin hinamein to auto tis superdegmati pesetes apatheas. Hortatory subjunctive here from spudasdo, to be zealous for, to be keen for. To strive, let us strive therefore to enter into that rest, hiname, lest. Now the word order here is very strange, so I'll just do it, tell you what the Greek says. So we get ento auto goes with hupadagmati, and with to plus the autos with the article means the same. So ento auto hupadagmati literally is by the same example. Now this comes to mean, this is a very long way of saying by the same kind of or the same sort of. Pese is aorist subjunctive from pipto, to fall in the sense of to fall down. Earlier on I think he used this of the corpses, the kola, the limbs falling in the desert of the children of Israel. It's more of the sense of perish, I think, here. And the tes apatheas goes with the apodagmati. So putting it together, so lest anyone, it gets shoved in here, lest anyone might perish by the same sort of disobedience. Literally by the same example of disobedience. So it's a tricky verse, the word order is very odd. The meaning's fairly clear. So let us therefore strive to enter into that rest, lest anyone by that same example of disobedience might perish, literally might fall. Zon gar hologos to theou kai en erges kai tomoteros hupe passan macheron distomon kai di ignumenos, acri merismu psyches kai pneumatos, harmon te kai muelon, kai kritikos en thumesion, kai en noion cardias. The difficult and very rich verse, which I'll leave the commentators to expand on, but it means the word of God, this is a participle from tsao, is living, and then we get an adjective en erges and operative, working, kai tomoteros. You will know the verb temno, to cut, aorist is etemon, so the root is tem. You get this vowel gradation to tom, and it gets turned in, and when it forms an adjective, so it's tomos, and this is the comparative, tomoteros. I'm not sure whether you probably know the rules for whether this is a long or short here. If the previous syllable vowel is short, which it is, then you have a long for the comparative. If this was a long vowel, you'd have oteros. Anyway, so it means sharper. Beyond each machaira is a sword or dagger. Distomon is two termination adjective. It's going with machairon, which is feminine, but this is really two, and stomos is mouth. So literally two-mouthed, i.e. two-edged. So sharper beyond any two-edged sword or perhaps dagger. Kai di iknumenos. This is dia plus hikneamai, which means to pass through. So perhaps penetrating. Acri, as far as the merismos, the division of the soul and spirit. And again, passing through. And it's taking a genitive because of the dia in diagnumenos. Harmon is referring to the joints. So the joints and the muelon, this is the word for the marrow, the bones. Kai kritikos, judging or perhaps discerning. And then we get these defining genitives. So discerning of the nth, this is a third declension feminine abstract noun, enthumesis. Enthumia in classical Greek means to give serious thought to put it into your thumos, and hence reflections it's often translated as. So, and discerning of reflections and enoion and thoughts, cardias, of the heart. Kai uk estinctissus aphanes enopion autu panta de gumna kai tetraclismena tois ophthalmois autu proshon hemin hologos. Now ktisis is the created thing. For there is not a created thing which is invisible or unseen, enopion autu, before him, but panta, all things are gumna, are naked. Now this is a very a funny expression here. It's a very unpleasant metaphor. It's the metaphor's skipped over in most of the translations. They simply say something like laid open to scrutiny or laid bare before his eyes. It's actually a much harsher metaphor. The tracheilos is a neck, and this refers to the neck of a sacrificial animal being pulled back before the throat is cut. So it's a really, it's a very late word. It does occur, surprisingly, in Philo of Alexandria, and it's a rather grotesque metaphor, I think. But anyway, they water it down by laid bare to scrutiny or laid bare, but it is actually referring to this animal with its neck pulled back before it's slaughtered. Anyway, so all things are naked and laid bare to his eyes. Pros hon hem and hologos. He to whom, now this is again an odd expression here. Literally, the word is for us, or logos can mean the account. So it's something like for who, or reckoning, for whom there is reckoning for us. In other words, to whom we must give account. We could paraphrase it. Last little section here, which introduces this notion of the great high priest. In the numbering, it might have been better to have started chapter 5 here, but they haven't done that. So, ekon tesun akeria megan dia leluthota tu surimus yesun ton huion tu theo kratomentes homologias. So for having this great, therefore, this great high priest, or a great high priest, having passed through, this is a participle, perfect participle from dia erchomai. The aorist is elelitha, and this is the participle, great high priest, having passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, kratomen, hortatory subjunctive, let us take hold of the confession. We've had that word earlier. In Hebrews, uga erchomen, here archieria me dunominon sun pepesai tais astheniais hemon, pepires menon de katapanta kath hoi moi oteta choris hamatias. For we do not have a high priest who is not able. Now this is from Patho. It's from Pascal, I should say, to suffer. Who is not able to suffer sun with tais asthenia. Now asthenia is a weakness. So he's not able to sympathise. We get our word sympathy from this. Not able to sympathise with our weaknesses. But one who is peparasmenon, perfect passive participle, one who has been tempted katapata panta in all respects, kath hoimoi oteta, and in our likeness, choris hamatias, but without sin. Pros komatha un meta paresias tothronotes karitos, hina labomin Elios kaikarin huromen as eukairon boethean. Again, a hortatory subjunctive. Therefore, let us approach with paresias, boldness. I've had that word several times. It has an interesting etymology. It's from para plus the race here, which connected with Lego, but it generally means boldness. With boldness, let us approach to the throne of grace, in order that we might have, from Lambano, Elios, pity, or perhaps mercy, and grace, and that we might have grace. So we get a nice chiasmus here. We've got the two verbs and the two objects of them, but in reverse order. So in order that we might have grace, and we might have, we might have mercy, and that we might have grace. That's a nice stylistic with a chi in between. Very clever stylistic idea here. Es eukairon boethean, literally in timely need. So in the time of our need, we might translate it, but it's literally in timely boethean need. And that's the end of chapter 4.